Hey there, I'm Conan O'Brien. Welcome to Serious Jibber-Jabber. I'm here with the Emmy and Tony Award-winning actor and comedian Martin Short.
Oh.
Yeah, cricket stopped for you.
Yeah.
Okay? Very nice.
Yay!
He, of course, starred in the groundbreaking sketch comedy series SCTV. He's also a cast member on Saturday Night Live and has appeared in numerous films, including The Father of the Bride movies, Clifford, Three Amigos. He's done so much, you can't put it all on any
Don't you want to
cue
talk
cards.
about the Tony?
Oh, plural. Multiple Tonys. I think
Three
I said,
Tonys.
Really?
2 daytime Tonys, but 1 full nighttime.
Do they look any different?
You're littler.
And they're made of candy, aren't they?
You're edible.
I'm going to start by saying something I haven't said to anybody.
Uh-oh.
Are you a Jew? I'm allowed to ask you that. No, here's my question. I've been in this business now since 1985.
Can I make a call during this part? Go ahead.
This will be quick, and you're going to like it.
Because I can't hear about the whole
There's
journey.
one name I reliably hear. Funniest guy ever. Martin Short.
Really?
Yes.
That's
consistently you. Why? How have you perpetuated this fraud this long? You know that, though. You know that, and I know there's really no response for you, but it's why I wanted to talk to you in this environment. Because
Well, that's very kind. You know, it's pretty. I think it's a subjective thing. I think that you would find people when this is on. If you go down to the comments, they'll say, "What?"
I can see them. I can see them now.
I can see them now.
There's a lot
I've
of
read them now.
horror. There's a lot
No. I mean, but it is. Don't you find the most fascinating thing about comedy is that it's a subjective thing? Some people love slapstick. Some people hate it. Some people admire the Stooges. Some people don't.
I'll say this. I think if you get all the concentric circles and you have them intersect in one area, I think there are very few people that you can get just about everybody to agree on. You are one of them. I'm going to put Steve Martin in that category as well. And then you start having arguments. But there's not an argument when you say, Jesus Christ, Martin Short is the funniest guy ever. Every time I've seen you do anything, you score reliably. I'd like to know the secret. How do you do it? How can I do it? How can I steal your life's essence? That's what I want.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. I do believe, though, like for talk shows, for example, the mind's instinct is always to really over-prepare. You send in, 30 pages initially. Have them cut down to 8 pages. That will never be, no one will get to all that material. And if, in fact, if you go out and just start doing your material, then the appearance will be a failure because it won't be a conversation. It will just be a rat-a-tat-tat. But that over-preparation gives you this confidence. Not just that you're going out with something, but also, for me, it's also tied to this idea that if I bomb, I'll still be able to go out and have a glass of wine and celebrate because I did everything I could do. I can't help it if I'm limited.
Well, you just want that wine is all you want. And I'll get you your wine. That was your one agreement. To me, that is one of the keys. You do it, and Steve Martin does it. But what I've noticed is, and it's not just in comedy, but particularly holds in comedy, is that the people that really astonish me are the people that work really hard even though they probably don't have to. To me, that's what separates you. I've seen the notes. Whenever Frank Smiley produces your segment.
We've done many shows together.
Yes. 30 pages of notes of you testing out different stories, the level of work that goes into
There's
it.
a hair of neediness to it.
Yes.
Which is the name of my book. Hair of neediness.
Awful title. Awful title.
How about Sonny Von Bulow Unplugged? We have that option.
Okay. This is, I forbid
Does it
you.
look infected? How about that title?
We'll go with that.
The New
I like that.
Testament. I'm thinking that's good.
No, it's been taken. No. Let's talk about where it comes from, which is we go back. And I think anybody who's in this business of comedy, we'll call it that for tonight, even if this is tonight. I have no idea what time it is. We shoot this in a salt mine.
It really is
At 4 in the morning.
In a safe house.
In a safe house. It's got to start when you're a kid. It has to. That's where you learn that you're funny. So let's start. Was your dad funny? Was he a funny guy?
My dad was very funny. My dad was very sarcastic. Very funny. And when I started doing Jiminy Glick, I realized that I was also channeling his thing. Like my father was Irish, born in Ireland. So what he would do is that and he was very successful. He was the vice president of Steel Company of Canada. So he was an executive. He had a bar, for example, in his office that he'd never touch. But the second he'd come home, gin and ginger, no ice, and he'd sit there, read the paper. He never ate with us because he'd always had his big meal at lunch. So he'd see us, all the 400 kids, sitting there, and you don't shovel it in like an animal. You don't need to. Or can I get up on this thing?
You could do whatever you want.
Sometimes he'd be reading the paper, and he'd look over, and he'd just get up like this. All right, Michael, keep eating. I'll make sure the dogs don't get at you. I'll proud of it. And it was just like, oh, Dad, would you just leave the room? Let us. One time, did I have a cloth or a Kleenex? Well, I'll just do it. Imagine. It's like I was cleaning the counter, and I bunched it up like this. And then he said he could watch that for about 8 seconds, and he'd grab it. Look, only a moron. Now you got a big space. So it was always very, not critical, but ultimately right, and very funny. And everyone was funny in my family. I was the youngest, so it was almost like trickle-down funny.
Right.
It was. And we have tapes that, we used to always make tapes. Did you make tapes in your
Yeah. I made audio. I didn't have any access
audio,
to
same with
video.
audio, yeah.
But it was
I had a reel-to-reel, and we'd make comedy tapes and the Sleazy Awards, and we'd do all this stuff. But my mom would be there laughing at one of the characters too. So she was not funny, but laughing and appreciating, and if she'd bomb, we'd make fun of her bombing. And so I think comedy was very dominant in my house. And I think, though, that for me, as a youngest, not only did I steal from everybody, but because I was, never really touched the ground till I was 11 or something, that I was given all this confidence. Oh, Marty. And then I was stealing everyone's bits.
I think, how many brothers and sisters?
I was youngest of 5.
I was middle of 6, and I believe most of my timing, most of my instincts got worked out around the kitchen table.
Absolutely.
Because I think there's a rough and tumble. It's just abrasion. You figure out what works, what doesn't work, and it starts when you're very young.
I think that Irish too. I think that there's a level of sarcasm and darkness and anger. I remember my father was born and raised in Crossmaglen, County Armagh, above Shorts Bar. Well, the Shorts Bar, which is still there, by the way. And his father was a publican, and as they call it, James Short. And up until 2 years ago, he died, was run by my Uncle Paddy, the youngest of the 11 kids. And I remember one night, Paddy's 2 sons and I stayed up till about 5 in the morning talking about family. I was visiting and staying over. And we were drinking beer, and then you go to whiskey. But if you're the owner, if you're the kids of the pub owner, you have to pay. You have to keep putting money in the till. You can't just drink the whiskey. So anyway, I came down around 9 in the morning, and Uncle Paddy was cleaning out the glasses. And he just looked at me. So how did the character assassination go last night? And he was, of course, spot on. And I thought, just great. Just edgy, funny.
Well, there's am I wrong? It felt to me when I was a kid anyway that we weren't allowed to be overtly impolite. But if we could be funny about it,
absolutely,
you can get away with murder.
You could be edgy, yeah.
So you can express anger and displeasure. I mean, I would see these other families. I had friends that from other cultures and other ethnicities, and they're yelling at each other openly in front of each. We never did that in my house.
No.
But it was all
Could you
coded.
swear at your father?
No.
No, I couldn't either. Oh, my God.
I can now. Now that I routinely rake him over the coals now.
How old is he?
He's well, he doesn't like me to mention his age. Let's just say he's really up there.
Yeah.
He's 84.
Well, I was going to say you're...
I am 50.
50.
Yeah.
I think that's fun when you say that. Everyone can Google stuff, Anyway, what's your next question?
58. 64.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Canada.
All righty.
and we've talked about this many times, SCTV was a revelation to me when I was very interested in comedy. And a lot of people were talking about Saturday Night Live. And I thought SCTV was for me specifically. And then I found out that there were a lot of people like me who thought that SCTV was just for them. The level of detail and the fact that there wasn't a live audience, I thought made a big difference, which is interesting to me because you so much thrive on a live audience and you were a huge success on Saturday Night Live, but there was something about
Well, I
SCTV
did SCTV, and the next year
right.
did Saturday Night Live, and it was hugely, hugely different. Pieces that you could write. I remember I wrote this piece in Saturday Night Live. I swear it would have killed an SCTV because we would have edited it. We would have done it exactly. It was a television commercial. I mean, a promo for a fictitious TV show. The idea that Lucy was coming back one more time.
Right.
And the show was called Look Who's Married Harry. And she's playing Bess Truman. And we're in the Oval Office, and I had the red wig, and I had the buttons, and on the vest. And I'm saying to Eleanor Roosevelt, played by Mary, help me, girl. We got a wallpaper before Harry. And it was just, talk about crickets. I mean, it bombed on a level at Dress. It was just nothing. And I thought, well, of course, because it doesn't look like a television promo. And what we could do in SCTV is we could take that, we would put the sound in, we'd shoot it the right way.
It was surgical in a way. You could be surgically precise about comedy and SCTV, and there's some. Saturday Night Live is a cultural.
Yeah. Well, they took the time. It was very. I remember there was John Candy and I was near the end of a season on NBC, and they'd come into you at a certain point and say, "Look, guys, we have 3 hours to shoot something. So if anyone can write something that would take 3 hours to shoot, we could shoot it. If it's going to take 8 hours, guys, we can't do it." Absolutely. So my brother Michael and I wrote this piece, Whatever Happened to Baby Ed? And I was Ed Grimley, and John Candy was the tormenting older brother, but he had hair too. And I'm in the wheelchair, and I'm practicing my wheelchair. And it was a really funny script, and we shot it, and you just knew it wasn't working. And we go over to the prompt, because they're shooting with 4 cameras, because they only have 2 hours to shoot it. I go over to I say, why isn't this working? And Candy says, I don't know, why isn't it working? And then John said, because it doesn't actually look like a movie. So now the director, John Blanchard, got into a huge fight with the producer, James Paul Rock, saying, we need 8 hours to shoot this over, up, shoot it exactly.
I remember the shooting of that, yeah.
And there was a big fight, and John and I went over and had a cigarette, and because the cast always won those things. Because we were the show. We wrote the show, controlled the show. It wasn't like Saturday Night Live where, clearly Lorne Michaels is the head of that show. Andrew Alexander was fantastic running it, but he knew to stay out of the way of everybody.
I mentioned Canada. You just mentioned Lorne Michaels. It's a boring question by this point. What is it about Canadians? But I need to go there because I have worked with so many comedians, and there's a very specific kind of comedy that seems to come out of Canada that I can never put my finger on it. But what is it? What's in the water in Canada?
I don't know. I was asked that a long time, and I used to think, oh, that's comedy is international. There's no such thing. And then I kept seeing these people, and then Phil Hartman and Mike Myers, and they just kept coming, and Jim Carrey, and I thought, no, it must be something. And I do think it is that Canada got the pythons before you got the pythons. I don't mean got it, but saw them.
Right.
So we would see American television, Canadian television, and British television. I also think it's a smaller. We're kind of like the middle sibling, You got the sexy young kind of. United States, and you've got the older Emma Thompson, British, and there's this kind of middle sibling who's much prettier and more fabulous than she might at times think, but it gives her that thing of sniping at people and making fun and then hiding. And also, I think behavior, odd behavior is more kind of revered there. I used to see Second City, there was, for a long time, just Second City, Chicago. And then in 73, it moved to Toronto. And if you saw the 2 shows back to back, you'd see the Chicago show, and it'd be very well written, very smart, political, edgy. Then you go up to Toronto, it'd be Catherine O'Hara and Robin Duke playing 2 drunk female truckers. and it was just character work so bizarre, and I personally was laughing more at the Toronto stuff. So I don't know if that's an answer to the question, but I because I've never
No, but
really
there is something
known.
about that middle child syndrome, and it's also, am I wrong? It seems like it's a very literate country. And I don't just mean reading, but I mean it seems like a lot of the comedians have this vast knowledge of movies, film. They're well educated in a way about
They were
comedy.
certainly well educated in satire.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the era where character work became more important than the punchline
Right.
was a great, great boom for Canadian comedy because they could create these characters that didn't have any punchlines.
Well, that's what
That's what Steve Martin. I just did a show with Steve the other night, and he's a good friend, obviously. But part of our show is we will talk about these things, and Steve was talking about this thing where he just decided to take out all punchlines and just see what happened. Right. And what happened is that he bombed for a couple of years, but then he'd be forced to create. It seemed like that he felt was the new world of comedy. And when you think of, Bill Murray singing "Feelings," there's no jokes there. It's just total attitude, total approach to comedy in a way that doesn't force you to be involved and yet takes you completely into its soul because it's saying, that guy, join me in this little journey and don't just hear my jokes.
There's an aggressive, in a lot of your work, there's almost I defy you to figure out how I came up with this guy, quality to it. And I mean this as a compliment, but I can, when Bill Murray made fun of the lounge singer, I knew where it was coming from. And so many people, I would know where it was coming from. And then there's an Ed Grimley, and it did feel like it was coming from another dimension. And I loved it, but couldn't for the life of me figure out how you came up with Ed Grimley. It's not someone, you didn't see an Ed Grimley. No one's ever seen an Ed Grimley.
No, I didn't see an Ed Grimley, but I did know a guy in school, and he always talked like that. He wanted to be a photographer. I'd say, "Hey, Stan, what did you do this week?" I took a lot of slides. Can I see them? Well, I didn't develop them because, I took them, so I knew what they were, so I didn't feel they needed to be developed. Pretty savvy, Stan, says I. And then it just kind of stays with you. And so then that was like when I'm 16. Now I'm, 26, and I'm doing Second City. Second City. And there was a character that, it was a scene called Sexist. And the scene was Peter Aykroyd, brother of Danny, Catherine O'Hara and I. Catherine is an amazingly qualified person for this same job.
I work at an Esso station at the corner of Jackson and Wilson Street, I'll say.
And that was the scene, and we end up, I end up getting the job, and that's the scene. And she does a tirade and storms off. And one night, I used to put a little grease in my hair just to do it. And Peter Aykroyd said to me one night, "Gee, that hair is standing taller every night." So to make him laugh, I put it right up. And the audience laughed, and I thought, well, this is why I'm here? So I just kept that, and then I realized it was kind of like an abstract painting, but there was a simplicity to him. And when I moved to Saturday Night Live, I couldn't do those quieter scenes anymore that I would do, so I had to explore Ed's world of in his apartment and his obsession with Wheel of Fortune and talking. If the phone rang,
Gee, I love the phone. There's always such a sense of mystery.
So there was truth to it.
Right. Well, you also did Nathan Thurm.
Thurm.
And opposite end of the spectrum. Like, there's a character who it's all about getting in really close and the quietness of it in a way. And it was very small. I mean, that to me, that was impressive. I noticed that at the time as a comedy fan that you've gone.
Well, I always found that Richard Nixon, when he went on and defended, that he didn't know why those 18 minutes were missing from that tape, I found that hysterical. Because first of all, there was all this sweat here. Mm-hmm. So it's like, he's lying, we know he's lying, and he knows we know he's lying, and yet I would never. And I just found that hysterical. So Nathan Thurm That's why I put sweat up here, and then
It was a 60 Minutes.
it was a 60-minute parody. There was a makeup artist at Saturday Night Live. I won't mention her name. She was the most offensive person that you'd ever met in your life. She always chain smoked, so she always had a cigarette like this. And I'd say, "Gee, Marion, I seem a little pale." "I know that. You don't think I know that? I know that. I'm a makeup artist. I would know that." Okay. So now, cut to, it's a month later, and Harry Shearer and Christopher Guest and Billy Crystal and I are writing a satire of 60 Minutes. And I'm going to play the lawyer that's always being cross-examined by Mike Wallace, played by Harry Shearer. And I will, be defensive. And I didn't know who to play. And Billy Crystal said, "Why don't you do Marion Siebert?" I just said the name. And he said, "Why don't you do her?" I said, "Well, I can't do her. She's going to find out that I'm doing it." She'll never find out. They never find out. So then we're doing it. And then, but I forgot she'd be there, of course, when we shot it. So Mike Wallace I'm saying, "I know that. You don't think I know that? I'm a lawyer. I would know that." And they go, "Cut." He's sweating. She goes, "I know that. You don't think I know that? I'm a makeup artist."
She didn't figure it out.
She didn't figure it out. She never figured it out. Except she never figured it out. And then on Saturday Night Live, as you know, better than anyone, when a character works, they repeat it. And every time I did it, I was terrified that I'd get caught. And I never got caught. And then in the last show, there was a big party, and her assistant got drunk and said, "Marion, how stupid are you? You're Nathan Thurm. Don't you know that?" So she confronted me. "I thought you were my friend." And I said, "I am your friend, but you know that impersonation is the highest form of compliment." And she said, "I know that. You don't think I know that?"
You immortalized her.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing.
I guess.
And we'll bleep her name out.
I guess, thank you.
Jiminy Glick.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but again, there are all these aspects of Jiminy Glick, his cartoonish body. It's you encased in this fat suit. But that seems to be so important to him. I love Jiminy Glick. I loved him when you did him in your Broadway show, and you let me come up and,
That's true.
and do
We
like
did
a
it
quick
together.
improv, and I know you did that.
And you also did Primetime Glick.
Yes, but there was something about that absurd body. It almost feels like that gives you license as Jiminy Glick. There's something about being in that suit. That seems to help you. It seems to give you a license to be.
Well, certainly the suit was great because I could fall all over because I had the padding. It definitely allowed me to say things that I would never, ever, ever say to people. Sometimes you just hush someone. "Shh! Just because I ask you a question doesn't mean I need an answer." But no one got upset. Well, one person got upset. But most people.
Who got upset?
I can't say it.
Gotcha.
Tell you at dinner. That will be fun.
Yeah, and then I'll tweet it out, and then everybody will know.
No, I should be able to tell the story, but I'm too kind. I'm too sweet.
This is interesting. You are I think we may have some similarity here. You're a very nice person. I think of myself as a nice person. Comedy is my way to not be so nice. Walk this line of, I have 1,000 running bits with my staff where I play an over-the-top ogre character.
Yeah.
It's like, "Quiet, you! Shut up!" I
Yeah.
grab comedy writers. I've pushed people up against the wall. I'm constantly insulting them in a variety of ways. It's not really me, but it's a way.
Well, no. I think you're satirizing someone who's like that. Don't you think?
I hope so. Or I'm an asshole. I don't
know. Well, little bits of everything.
Yeah, thank you. My point is.
What is your point?
Your point is that my point is that you are you always seem to me like a very nice guy, but you can take it right to the edge. You have a razor's edge. I don't want to say cruelty, but you're able to take it right up to the line and get away with it, and audiences love it. Routinely every time you come on my show, you open with a barrage of my makeup, the bad work I've had done. And you're playing.
No, I said to you that I appreciated the work that cosmetic surgery you had, and my only suggestion was 20% more.
part of you means it.
Not
That's
true
the
at
beautiful
all.
part.
No, you can never go for the
No,
real
no,
thing.
no, no.
No. But you can't go to the real stuff.
Right.
You can't go to, if someone has a big stomach, you can't say, nice stomach, that's mean.
Right.
But you can say, this is pie, I'm sure you'd like that. You can do that.
You fat fuck.
No, I mean, I think that, I think, like, when you satirize someone, when you impersonate someone,
Yes.
I did pieces, 2 pieces in SCTV where I played Jerry Lewis. And it was very important to me to show within those pieces that Jerry Lewis was really funny. I could show other sides that might make it ultimately be like a Hirschfeld sketch. But if you denied why that person was famous and revered and just went to the mean stuff, then there's no satire.
Right.
It's not layered.
And Jerry later quasi-approved of your...
Well, yeah, I was asked
Because I think you did a hardly working... I mean, you did the Jerry Lewis
No,
impression.
I did scenes from An Idiot's Marriage.
Yeah.
Jerry Lewis working with Bergman. The lozenge.
The lozenge, yeah.
I always felt that Jerry Lewis, even if he didn't have a lozenge, either seemed like he had a lozenge in his mouth or should. So we'd talk about why the studios were run by fools today.
Oh.
Lozenge, I'll put it there.
But he can produce another one instantly from within his...
I don't know where they're coming from. I mean, I can only
He's a dispenser of lozenges.
dispenser of lozenge.
What's the era of show business that if you were a magical man, you could go in? Is there an era of show business that you would prefer or that you identify with?
I probably would say, I don't know. I mean, is it? I used to love 1962. I was 12. I used to think, what a great thing. There's Frank, there's Sammy, there's, all these funny people on TV, Jackie Gleason, Jonathan Winters. But I don't think it's so much because that's the era I want to live in. I think that when you're 12, that's when you're open to it all. That's when the people that's when you're most influenced. That's the huge time, 12 to 15 or so. Then there's a certain point where you say, I'm just recycling everything that I learned between 12 and 15,
There's you sing, you dance. I watched you. I was there when you did the AFI tribute to Mel Brooks and did this opening number, and you toss these things off. There's an incredible amount of skill. You know this form of show business that a lot of people in my generation, they don't have the command.
Well, I think that in general, I mean, let's face it, there's Saturday Night Live as far as sketch shows. There are not many sketch shows. When I was 14, 15, you turn on television and there were variety shows, there were sitcoms as there are today, there were westerns, and there were all the shows that are on today, but there were a lot of sketch shows. So therefore, a lot of people worked as writers in sketch shows, and they learned that craft. But I think that in my generation, there was maybe just a little wider range of what was going on, so you could watch it all and take a little bit of that, a little bit of that.
I also think you had to know, because when I was a kid and I'd watch the variety shows, everybody, it was just done. If you watched a Bob Hope, variety show, everybody had to sing a number at some point.
Yeah.
And you had to do some soft shoe. And there was this thing that got carried over. I mean, you think about TV when it first began in the late 40s and the early 50s, they're just taping vaudeville and showing it to people.
Yeah, right.
And then that got carried on for a while to the point where the Brady Bunch has a variety show. And they all have to sing and dance because that's what you have to do. Yeah. I think that's obviously not so much the case now. I don't think, there's as you said, there's a lot of attitude comedy. There's a lot of comedy that's almost anti-performance. But there's a lot
of comedy that kind of, that guy, isn't that guy stupid? Let's show a clip. That guy got hit in the balls. Let's show a clip. that hurt. We'll be back. It's not necessarily my favorite, but mainly because there's so much. There's so much. If there was like one person doing that, you'd say, that's cool. You know, Louis C.K. You look at Louis C.K. and you think, what's so great about Louis C.K. is that he's doing what other people do, but he's doing something different. There's some kind of weird honesty, that truth that we all. He's saying things that we shouldn't even be thinking, and he's just saying it and laughing and saying, "Come on," you know.
And Louis is an example of someone who's been working on that forever. He's always been that guy. He almost needed the medium to catch up to him.
Right.
He needed.
Well, you look at someone like John Belushi in that first cast of Saturday Night Live. Steve Martin always says that he was in Aspen, living there in Aspen, strangely enough. In 1975, he had a house there. And he watched Saturday Night Live, the first episode, and he went, they did it. They figured it out. They figured out how to take comedy, variety, and show business in general to just this new level. In a way, something that he was trying to do too. It was just simultaneously. But as brilliant as John Belushi was, and all those guys and girls on that cast, and Gilda, if they hadn't had that vehicle, who would know that they could do that? So you do need. It's like why when everyone says about being in comedy or show business in general that it's you have to have talent, yes. You have to have tremendous endurance, yes, and you have to have luck. You have to actually have a vehicle that allows you to showcase these so-called gifts.
There's an era of show business, and clearly it's changed, but my example is the Beatles on Sullivan. It's February of '64, they go on, and 73, 80 million people watch. There's no crime while the Beatles are performing. It's a huge event. And I always say today, by the time the Beatles got to Sullivan, we'd all be sick of them, because we'd have watched, would have seen all of their work in the Cavern Club, because we'd all be on video, it would be on YouTube, that have been jammed down our throats a million different times before they even got over here.
Right.
And they would have been here 600 times before they ever went on Sullivan, because
Right.
they would have been in the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, and we would have slimed them, and so.
You make it all so pathetically sad.
Yeah, that's the point of this show.
Yeah, that's the name of the
but
the name of the show.
I always feel like there's an era of show business that I think you're still very strongly connected to, where it's a club, which is how it used to be. It used to be a smaller club. Now it feels, in the old days, you could go on Carson and do a Carson appearance, and the next day walk down the street, and everybody had seen it. Everybody. And today, I don't think there's any one show where anybody can go and be seen by everyone.
Yeah, there's also 900 stations and 900 ways to see things. When I was 13, if I wanted to change the station, and by the way, there were only 9, I'd have to get up and walk across the room. And if you're as drunk as I was at 13, it's hard to walk without hitting your knee.
Yeah.
So you end up watching that odd black and white Thin Man thing with William Powell that you never, ever, ever would have watched had you gone and had 900 stages. So therefore, obviously, in Johnny Carson, there was one talk show. That was
one guy. And the other thing is there seemed to be a unanimity about what the topics were. Everybody knew. They all knew who Dean Martin was, and that his act is he's been drinking. They all knew who Rickles was. And everybody knew the backstory.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things today is, I've seen this a million times, someone will have a very successful show, a show that is a hit in its niche, and they come on the show and they say, I'm going to come out there and I'm going to start by dropping a line from my show, and they look out to the crowd. There's no unanimous yes.
Yeah.
Some people know what he's talking about. Other people don't. It doesn't mean the show isn't a hit in its world. It's just very hard for everybody to. No one's on the same page, I think, sometimes comedically. And I think it really. You come from that era where you grew up, and I think you embody in a lot of your comedy that era where everybody knows the story. Do you know what I mean? Everybody knows.
Again, though, I think it's just that if there's 1,000 things to watch, your focus is constantly. I have from having, you know, that remote control and 900 stations. Much less tolerance for watching anything. I don't give anything a chance, it seems. I'm just kind of watching and watching. I mean, it's a little better if you can DVR and create your own network, you
Right.
know. Then you created it, therefore you commit to it a little more.
Well, also on SCTV, Saturday Night Live, you're parodying things where everybody knows what you're parodying. Whereas today, there's a pressure to, you've got to do, there's a twerking video. Miley Cyrus twerking.
Well, like, how would you parody Miley Cyrus at the award show?
You have to do it, well, here's the problem.
Well, you'd have to have the tongue that goes right out and drags on the ground.
And is pinned up to the side of your face.
Exactly.
I would have to have a lot of surgery to my ass. Further surgery to my ass to have it done.
Let's be honest.
But the problem is, you're parodying something that that is the biggest. Miley Cyrus twerking was the biggest splash culturally in the last, couple of weeks.
Good culture to live in.
Thumbs up all
Yeah.
around.
But you must admit, that was like a train wreck of such insane proportions.
I thought she was fantastic. I thought she nailed it.
Allow me to finish my thought. I'm only talking about her hairdo. I would like to have seen it down. I don't know why the devil horns. I thought the tongue was brilliant.
Yeah.
And twerking, gee, I mean, I love twerking.
Yeah.
The Pope has introduced twerking into the Catholic Church now, which I think priests are twerking. It's a new era. You know that the Pope Francis will not wear any fur on his capes. You know that. All fur is gone.
Is that true?
Yeah.
He decided that himself.
Yeah, they do, except if he has Lady Gaga tickets. But that is all he'll do. Thank you. Thank you so much.
How do you like the no audience format?
I'm used to the response. I'm certainly.
Let's talk about talk show guests who you've earned. You're in the pantheon of people that you always deliver. You're always funny. Everybody, when you're on the show, any show, it's a day off for the host. Who do you feel that way about when you see them on a show as a guest?
Oh, I think Steve Martin,
yeah.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks is another guy.
Tom
who
Hanks. I just saw Bill Murray, this kind of like breathtaking performance on Dave Letterman's show, where he came out as Liberace. I think people that commit to it, but there's a lot of people. It really goes down. Billy Crystal is always prepared. He's always funny. I think it's tied to this idea that if it's important. You know, one thing about Steve is that he'll phone me up and he'll say, tell me if you think this joke is funny. So he'll go over 4 jokes. Oh, what's this for? I have to do blank in 3 months. And you're saying, so you're working this hard on your 7,000th talk show, and you're Steve Martin, and this is like 3 years ago, and you think, it's really that important to you that you do well. That's why, I guess, you're Steve Martin.
We had, on the old late night show, you'd have these bands that had the hit of the moment. And they would show up, they'd make a lot of demands. They wanted to keep the NBC limo for the night. They wanted a lot of booze. They wanted this, they wanted that. And then I remember Springsteen was on a few times. Every single time he showed up early. Worked it out, was in there, worked hard at rehearsal, figured it out, then was out in the hallway, and then he was in his dressing room, and he was ready to go, and then afterwards hung out, chatted with people, was authentically nice and kind.
Yeah.
And you thought, yeah, it's not an accident.
But I think that sometimes people are so fearful, and they're wearing a mask of confidence, so that part of their fear is, oh, I don't need to rehearse. I'm too good. I'm too good to have to rehearse, you know. And the reality is that when you kind of have confidence in yourself, that's when you know, oh, I have to rehearse. Because, as I say, everything gets better when it's refined and you realize, oh, I just need that one line. I can take those 3 out. Well, you have to have studied it a little bit to know that.
Well, I usually think it's a defense mechanism, too.
Yeah.
When there's a comedian or a musician who doesn't want to rehearse and they say, let's just wing it, or as an actor who just says, let's just wing it, it's going to be great, let's just wing it, I know they're scared.
They're
I know they're
terrified.
terrified. They're
Yeah.
absolutely terrified. Are you on a coin in Canada?
I
Is this-
am the $3 coin, the Marty. There's the loonie, the toonie, and the Marty.
Is there? Let's talk about this. Are you really on a coin?
I am on a coin.
Is it your image? Is it your face?
No, I was asked by the Canadian government, the Mint, to design a coin, a $3 coin that would be sold. And so I, worked with this artist. We came up with this little scene, kind of like I had this cottage. It's an estate, but I call it a cottage on the lakes. And
Where
it's
is this specifically?
3 hours north of Toronto.
Okay, I've never been or been invited. What is it hard to get into?
You have to have really made me belly laugh.
I see. I see.
So, I mean, I've seen a lot of your stuff, and it's great. But this belly laugh thing is what I'm looking for.
Gotcha. Not cottage worthy, is what you're saying. So you have this cottage.
I've invited you many times, which is true.
Is it? Is it really?
It's okay. I've meant to invite you many times. I've thought bubbled it.
Fair enough. That's astounding. You're a coin.
I'm a coin.
You're a $3 coin.
I'm a $3
Is there
coin.
much use for a $3 coin in Canada?
There's not. And you actually, there's no, it was a bad idea.
Terrible idea.
It's sold. It's actually costs $50 to buy.
$50 to buy a $3 coin.
Yes, sir.
How's that economy going in Canada?
Well, we're struggling, eh? Well, keep in mind, I'm sure I've talked to you on your show, but for a while there, we now have 8 teams in the CFL. Mm-hmm. But for a while there, we had 9 teams. Not a lot of teams. 2 were called Rough Riders. The Saskatchewan Rough Riders and the Ottawa Rough Riders. And at times, as a kid growing up, I could pass the TV screen and I'd hear, Rough Riders 28, Rough Riders 7. And I'd
No idea.
I'd go, gee, I'm real happy for the Rough Riders, and yet I'm kind of sad for the Rough Riders. It, by the way, did not seem remotely strange until Tom Hanks once said to me, why is it that there are 2 teams Rough Riders years ago? Because he was amazed that I used to live on Avenue Road. That also made him.
Is there a road avenue?
There is no, but there is a road lane.
Nice.
Now, Canada's Canada's an amazing country. It's healthcare since 1962. Mm-hmm. The Queen is the Queen of Canada, Queen of England. I mean, it's 34 million people. Crime is less. Streets are clean. It's a great country. It's a great country.
Let's go.
Should we?
Live there. I could go there with you.
Let's go. We can't hit the cottage, though. I'm kind of close that out. If you don't mind.
That's not what I hear.
Yeah.
I have satellite images. It's packed right now. The greatest comedy people of the century. You met Frank Sinatra.
I did.
That's got to be one of the great highlights.
It was. I was always afraid. I think it's always daunting to meet a hero. Frank Sinatra was a hero. I'm talking about the son, Frank Jr. I was at this party. It was, and Frank was 77 years old. Mm-hmm. He's standing at the bar by himself with a drink, and I went up to him.
He was miming.
Yeah, no, there was nothing against it. I couldn't believe the agility. And Dinah Shore was a famous singer. I said, "Do you want to meet Frank?" Because she was a fan of SCTV. She was this hip chick. And I said, "Yeah." And I went up and I said, "Mr. Sinatra, my name is Martin Short. It's like 1992." I said, "You have no idea. You have no concept of how big a fan I am of yours." And he just looked at me and said, "I think I do." And he said, "What are you drinking?" I said, whatever you're drinking, Frank." And he turned to the bartender, "Jack Daniels." So the bartender said, "Straight up or on the rocks?" And I was too nervous. I thought he said, "Straight up or relaxed?" I said, "I'll have it relaxed." And Frank said, he said, "Straight up or on the rocks?" So I'd known Frank 15 seconds. I pissed him off. And then I thought soon he'd go for the gun. And, He'd shoot me, and I couldn't hear the albums anymore, so I left. I got there quickly.
You pissed him off.
I pissed him
Within
off.
seconds.
Within 15
I
seconds.
think that it's better. The
Yeah,
story's
yeah.
better that way. What if you had become good friends? The story would be no good.
If we cross-countryed?
Yeah.
Frank, pass me that Diet Pepsi. Shut the fuck up. Ow! Frank, you don't shoot the driver. That's just crazy.
Is anyone else in your family in show business? Or
My brother Michael is a two-time Emmy winner. He wrote SCTV and has been a very successful writer for 30 years. My brother Brian is retired now. He's vice president of Dover Industries. My sister Nora's an anesthesiologist. So, you know, they're accomplished.
and you were pre-med for a while, weren't you?
2 years.
How could that have happened? You seem like someone that was born to be in show business. How could you have?
Well,
What made you think for 5 seconds that you would go into medicine?
I was a fan of Quincy. And I just loved the way Klugman could handle stuff.
He was a coroner.
So, no, you know, I'll tell you what it was. I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and in the '60s, you know, you couldn't get Charmin in Canada. The first thing I did when I was in the United States is, can I squeeze that? I mean, I was fascinated. There were Bosco you couldn't get, things that I would see on American television. So America seemed like it's like Venus or something. It just didn't seem realistic. I think if I'd grown up in New York, maybe I would have had a different attitude. So I was literally a 14-year-old kid who was up in my attic with an applause record, it had a reel-to-reel tape recorder that I had made from Sinatra at the Sands, and I'd recorded applause, and I'd loop it. So, and I pretended to have my own imaginary television show. I was on NBC at 8:30 every other Tuesday, which left room for my imaginary film career. And I had an applause record. I had a gooseneck lamp, because even then I needed, you know, softening around the eyes.
Yeah, we softened you.
And thanks. And I would type things up for TV Guide, and I'd, you know, do Tony Bennett, and I'd read from Playboy. I'd read the interview of Eldridge Cleaver. Your people are struggling. What can I do to help? You know, and I'd read his part, and I'd read the other part, and then someone would go, dinner, and then we'd tape later. And I used to do this, and yet at no time did anyone say, hey, do you want to go into show business? Because it just wasn't a realistic journey.
The feeling I had growing up, my dad is a doctor and a research scientist and a brilliant guy, and my mom was a lawyer. But I was constantly performing for my friends, constantly, and I was obsessed with it, but I never for a second thought that it was a career. I didn't see any. I remembered seeing Robert Urich once shooting something on the streets of Boston, and I saw Robert Urich. That was my exposure to show business. Wow. That was all I had was Robert Urich.
I mean, it's good, but it's not often enough.
No. But it feels a little bit like today it's a more accessible dream for anybody. I think the internet, I think the culture we have.
Absolutely. And reality television makes, you know, Snooki's on the cover of People. So you go, well, therefore it must be accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
I knew right away, I guess from watching television, that the chances of being successful were remote. And I did not want to be not successful. In anything I did. I didn't want to be broke. So when I started in acting, I had done 4 years of university, and I thought, I will give myself 1 year. And if I don't make a living in 1 year, then I will go back to school and do a master's or something and accept it. So, because I always knew that the key to it all was to look in the mirror at 50 and say, well, maybe you should have tried being an actor. And then you go, oh, that's right. You did try being an actor, and no one ever hired you. So for many, many years, I would like renew my private contract with myself. It'd be like approaching May, and I'd think, all right, do we give it another year? Do we go back? All right, let's give it another year. Because I was working, you know, and I was
the
making
minute
a
you're
living.
getting, the minute you're paying your rent through performing.
Right.
For me, it was the minute I got out of college and I was making some money as a comedy writer, that extended my deadline.
Right.
As long as I'm paying for myself.
You must know people, and I certainly have known people that have struggled for years with and are, working as waiters or in stores, and they will not give up the dream. And now they're 33, and now they're 35. I don't not regard that as admirable and committed, and they're saying, I'd kill to have something else to do. I want to follow my passionate road. I get it. And I just personally wouldn't have done that. I say to my kids, I have 3 kids, I say, I don't care if you have any money at 30, but I would like to think you had stumbled on some sort of passion and something that's going to fuel your interests throughout your life. The other stuff would come along. But I just knew it was a treacherous road, but I was very lucky at the beginning, and I got all these things, and I just kept working.
All right, we have the internet. I don't want you to frighten you with this.
The internets. I thought it was pronounced internets.
Please, the less you say, I think
I've
better.
heard that before.
This is a device. I don't want you to be frightened. We have fans that are watching, and I'm supposed to read you this fan question. We're going to do 2 with you.
Maybe you need your trifocals, or are you pretending that you don't wear them?
If I knew who you were right now, I would insult you. I cannot see beyond.
I understand.
Here we go. Joanne from Facebook asked, did you ever develop a character that no one would let you play on TV or movies?
No, but you certainly would do characters that wouldn't work out and you never saw them again. I remember in SCTV, I was playing an Italian. Definitely, there was a guy in, on the waterfront. All he would say is, definitely. So my character was going a lot of definitely. You saw it back, and at the end of Stan, or whatever his name was, he was gone.
When I was at Saturday Night Live, I remember John Lovitz was, he'd had The Liar, and he'd had a couple of characters hit, his Master Thespian. He was obsessed with getting another catchphrase. And
I love that syndrome, yeah.
he wanted that. And you've seen it a million times,
yeah,
where
yeah.
someone so badly wants, I want my new catchphrase. So he was convinced that it was a character who said, goodbye, everybody, goodbye. And that's all he had. And he kept coming up to us in the hallway and saying, hey, you got anything from my goodbye guy? And so I don't know what leads into it, I don't know. And so he started going on Update, and I don't know if they've burned the tapes or what, but he started going on Update, and he'd say and Dennis Miller would throw to him, and he'd say, thanks, everybody. I think we're going to have a great time. Goodbye, everybody, goodbye. But anyway, I think President Reagan is definitely is going to finish his term today. Goodbye, everybody, goodbye. And you're watching it this isn't, it needs to be hooked into something. But he was obsessed with goodbye, everybody, goodbye. It never took off, and now I've resurrected it.
John was, John is so funny. It's so funny. His commitment, his original. There is only one John Lovitz.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
He has one brand of comedy. I can see things, I think, John Lovitz would have been better than that, because he has that thing.
Can you watch, I always think John Lovitz, if he had been born in a different era, would have been signed up by a studio to be the character actor who played that one guy in every film, because that's how it used to work.
Right.
He would be that guy that he played in, the women baseball movie. League of Their Own.
League of Their Own.
Yeah. But he would be a guy who always had a pencil. He'd be like, oh, yes. He'd be that character, and he'd be in 60 movies.
But I think because he's, to me, a soul from another era, that because he was the only one who was living with us in our present era, it made him more provocative, more original, and a bigger star.
Yeah. Let me ask you quickly, can you watch other people perform comedy and lose yourself in it, or is it next to impossible?
You mean because I'm sitting there with jealousy?
There's competitive. You can see the seams. You can see what they're doing. Oh, they're going for this. They're going for that. It's the old number 53B. Or can you lose yourself?
I think, truthfully, if it's the old number 53B, no. But if I'm looking at, I remember when I was asked to go into Saturday Night Live, and I'd now finished SCTV, and I was very hesitant because I had a new baby, and I really didn't. I just thought it just seems like I'd heard all this, the work and staying up Tuesdays, and I had just finished 3 years of Saturday Night Live, and I thought, I mean SCTV, and I thought, we'll just go to L.A. We rented a house, and Dick Ebersol phoned me up. Lauren wasn't doing it then, and said, would you like to do the show? And this is who we're going after. And it was Billy Crystal, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, and Rich Hall, these great people. And I said, well, if you get them, phone me back. And I'm thinking, you're not going to get those. Chris Guest isn't going to do Saturday Night Live.
Right.
And he said yes. So now I'm going to do it. So now I have a month and a half to think about it, And I remember seeing Spinal Tap and looking at it and going, I can't be in the same ballpark with these guys. This guy, Christopher Guest, is like, I knew Billy. Billy and I had known each other, but I had never met Chris. Knew Harry a little bit. I thought, well, he's too brilliant. I can't, so it wasn't for me, certainly it was not me sitting back and saying, oh, he's making that move. I think actually.
You got lost in it, yeah.
I got lost in it.
I
So I
remember
think you can get lost in it.
when Spinal Tap came out, it was a revelation.
Yeah.
Now there's so much comedy, and I'm sure there's revelations for people today, younger people today. I don't quite know what they are, but I'm sure they're having those moments themselves. I remembered, I want to say it was 1983 or 84. Spinal Tap came out, or was it?
It was the summer of 1984.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, and just sort of it reset. It hit
Yeah.
the reset button.
Right. You kind of go, ooh. So, I love to, Bill Hader to me is one of the most brilliant. Fred Armisen,
Yeah,
Kristen Wiig, brilliant, fantastically talented people.
yeah, and you can just enjoy them.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Uman from Facebook asks, what's your favorite song to sing in the shower?
Is that all there is? Used to be, and then I stopped looking down.
Incredible.
I think that's pretty fast.
That was fantastic.
Thanks. That wasn't good. It wasn't clever, and it was dated, and what is that song?
It was 53C.
I sing in the shower. I'd like to sing in the shower. I'm a big singer in the shower.
What do you like to sing? Is it old show tunes?
No, it's
You're not singing, Radiohead.
you don't wash as quickly. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm doing. No, what am I doing? I got a feeling, sometimes I'm making up songs. I got a feeling that today's gonna be a sunshine day. I do. Sometimes I'll do that. Again, I don't watch anything. I'm too busy performing.
My wife occasionally, when we first...
Oh, she likes to sing in the shower. Anyway, what's your question? Sorry, thought you knew.
Didn't, but I get it. She'll hear a whole, there's all kinds of, there's a show that goes on in my bathroom every night, and she has had other people hear it.
She's singing?
No, me.
yours?
I'm talking and saying, now you listen here, see? I mean, I go, and if I'm
No,
in
wait
the
a
show...
second. Are you doing voices from old movies like that, or are you venting?
It's a combination. Sometimes I'm venting.
Are you venting in an old voice?
Yeah,
like that?
I will talk. I enjoy that era of speaking. I grew up on Jimmy Cagney movies, Angels with Dirty Faces. They showed them all the time, and I love that fast patter. But there's a lot of me yelling and confronting myself in the mirror and shouting at a bar of soap, and she's used to it, which I find sad.
But but you are medicated.
Yes. Oh, yes. Heavily. All right. As are we both. And will be
Hey.
when we go out to have dinner.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have dinner tonight.
Yes.
Who's paying? It should be you, because I'm doing this show, and it seems like it should be the show picking up the tab. Traditionally, when I go out with Conan, the bill just sits there.
We keep
It
going
sits
to the
there.
bathroom hoping the other will
Yeah.
take care of it. I've stayed in that bathroom for 2 hours one time.
Oh, I
just
used-
crouching.
I used to think you had an impediment in your reach.
I'm going to wrap this up.
Don't you want to get some stuff that can be used? All right.
This was just us testing
Pretty
the
brave.
equipment. We're testing the equipment.
Thank you. Thanks for having me drive to Burbank.
This will never, ever be seen. I'm going to end the way I started, and that's to say, and I've been in this business a long time, this gentleman right here is, in my opinion, the funniest guy out there. And I said something to you at the Vanity Fair party, and I'm just dropping that because I don't get invited a lot of places. I ran into you, and I mentioned this to a lot of people, and I'll mention it to you, and I'll scream it to the rooftops. Every year they talk about Oscar hosts, and I think, who's funnier than Martin Short, who's actually has a body of film work, and young people think you're really funny. I think you'd be the ultimate Oscar host.
Well, thank you very much.
And I have no power in this town.
Oh, that I know.
Can't make it happen, and my even suggesting it may seal its doom.
Yeah, may people think, wait a second, we must be nuts.
Exactly. That I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, you know,
I personally think you are genetically engineered to host that show.
Genetically engineered.
I think you were built in a lab by Nazis to host the Oscars, and
well, thank you very much.
I think you would absolutely destroy.
Don't you
it.
think, in a way, though, truthfully, it's slightly a no-win situation? That you work for 8 months and then they say, how about that Adrian Brody kiss? Because it's about the Oscars.
I think you would take a very long. I would enjoy all the moments that you were on screen, and I think everyone else would enjoy all the moments that you were on screen, and there'd be a couple of flamethrowers on the internet that would say, I didn't like it when he said X, Y, or Z, but no one would care. And you would be, look at Steve Martin. He does it, and people are satisfied. They're more than satisfied.
Well, what about you doing it? Let's be more realistic.
I have a thin, reedy voice. I'm annoying.
Can't that be beneficial in a host? I guess not.
No, not at all. I have very almost non-existent genitalia. I'm off-putting, and I've made a lot of enemies in this town. The conversation is you. You're the guy that should do it. And
what an epitaph.
yeah, the gravestone's been made.
Do you know what it says on my gravestone?
What's that?
One word.
What's that?
Almost.
I'm ending this only because I want to go and have dinner with this guy, and there's going to be a lot of drinking.
Oh, and chat. And, may I add, gossip.
We're both mean gossips.
Jimmy Fiddler in Hollywood.
Can we admit that we're mean gossips?
Yeah.
We're mean sons of bitches.
Fantastic.
Martin Short, there is nobody funnier, and there never will be. That's it for us. Jibber-Jabber, blah, blah. Internet. Good night.